Hello my friends and welcome back to Meerkat Musings. I'm your host Ben with a few ponderances as we reach the beginning of July and we come off the back of a June which in the end provided the first real glimpses, shall we say, of summer. We finally had some decent sunshine for what has felt like the first time this year. And with luck, we'll get more. I think the immediate forecast is cloudy and a bit damp, but still warm. So a bit of a mixed bag, really, but I prefer to be warm than cold, so I can live with that. June has also delivered us the European Championships, or at least the beginning of the European Championships. And England have so far, somehow, rather miraculously, made it through to the quarter-finals, despite having, in 4 games, England have scored just 4 goals. And half of those goals came in the game last night against Slovakia. And those goals came right at the death. Well, the equaliser certainly came right at the death. With England thus far, and you know, I could go on for hours about this, the style of play has been very timid. It's been kind of hesitant and unsure. It's been slow. It's been sideways. England's players have lacked any kind of incision, and when you consider that we've got players who have been absolutely tearing up different leagues across Europe, you have to find yourself thinking, how are they all of a sudden, when in England shirts, playing so badly? Of course, that's a question that numerous England fans could ask about numerous generations of England players. You stick these players in an England shirt and their performances drop, and we've seen that in no uncertain terms at these Euros. Some of that is down to the players, some of it is down to manager Gareth Southgate and his conservative approach to football. Why are we not seeing more of the attacking talent that is Cole Palmer at this tournament? Why are some players being played out of position? We know where they're at their most effective, but for every reason Southgate won't play them in their most effective roles. And the whole thing so far has seen England somehow stumble and falter into the quarterfinals. And we've been exceedingly lucky with that. The moment we play a true titan of European football, I suspect that we will be horribly exposed. If we play Spain, for example, Spain, okay, you could argue they weren't playing a big team, but they were playing a very plucky, very determined Georgia side who had a lot of energy, a Georgia side who had beaten Portugal in the group stages. Spain, however, played with creativity. They utilised their attacking players in the right kind of way, and they won 4-1. If we were to play Spain in this tournament, they'd tear us to pieces because they play with energy and enthusiasm, and we don't. It's as simple as that. So, you know, somehow, as I say, we fluked it through to the quarterfinals. We're going to play Switzerland next. Switzerland, who beat Italy in the second round. Switzerland, who, to be honest, they themselves could probably tear us apart. And the whole thing is just, it's just misery-inducing to watch England play at the moment. There's no swagger. There's no confidence. There's nothing to get you excited when you watch England play. And I don't know, even if we were to somehow win the competition, which I think is highly unlikely, I would still want to see Gareth Southgate go, because winning the Euros as it stands would be the hugest, flukiest performance of all time, and it would simply disguise the failings of Southgate as a manager. Don't get me wrong, I appreciate that Southgate has taken England further in international competitions than virtually every other England manager. But it's becoming clearer and clearer that he does not have the means to get us across the finish line. You look at the attacking players he's got and the way he's squandering them, he's not the man to guide England to success. It's a bit of a shame because Southgate is fundamentally a nice guy, but he's too conservative in his choices, and that's costing England big time. So yeah, we've had the football, we've had the stress from the football, we've had some periods of political reflection going on, of course, in the world. We have the beginnings, shall we say, of the US presidential election campaign. It hasn't really officially started, but we've had an early debate between incumbent Joe Biden and his challenger Donald Trump. My views on Donald Trump are well known. I think he simply wishes to be a tyrant. I think he is, highly questionable in so many ways. But America's choice right now is between someone who, unfortunately, does seem to be struggling when he gets out there into the public limelight, and you've got Joe Biden, as I say, who seems to be struggling, or you've got the choice of Donald Trump, who has a history of failure, and is such a combative and aggressive and, to be honest, nasty person. So the choices aren't great if you're American, if you ask me. And the thing is, Republicans have spoken about Biden's age. Trump is not exactly a young man. I mean, he's in his late 70s himself. America's choice is between two old men, either one of whom is arguably not particularly in the peak of their health. And you wonder if either one of them would actually survive a second term. I fear a second term with Trump more than I do a second term with Biden, simply because I think Trump will probably seek to appease Vladimir Putin and the actions Russia is undertaking in Ukraine. And I think that would be disastrous for the world at large. So, it's kind of like America faces a couple of somewhat bad choices, and they have to decide which one is the lesser of two evils, in my view. And that's something that you could argue has been the case here in the UK as well. We've had 14 years of a right-wing Conservative government here, and the country is on its knees for it, without question. We've seen a staggering rise in food banks. We've seen a massive, huge increase in the gap between the rich and the poor. We've seen huge levels of sewage pumped into our waters because privatisation and money matter more than public health. We have a crumbling National Health Service thanks to the Tories. We have all kinds of problems and issues in this country that are the direct result of relying upon a bunch of self-serving parasites being in power. And things, of course, got dramatically worse 5 years ago when we ended up with the bumbling fool Boris Johnson in power, who ultimately, of course, destroyed himself by, among other things, of course, lying repeatedly. But then again, as I've said before, if Boris Johnson is breathing, it's fair to assume he's lying. So we've had all of that go on, and we're now left in a situation where we'll take, I think, anything other than the Tories. And that leads us to this current iteration of Labour under Keir Starmer. I would much prefer someone like Jeremy Corbyn to become the next Prime Minister. I think Corbyn, he's not a perfect man, of course he's not, but I think he is a man of principle, and he would stick to his principles in government. Whether you agree with all of his policies, he would, I think, look to enact policies for the best of the average Briton. Whereas I wonder if, I think Starmer will be better than a Sunak-led Tory government, but that's a low bar to clear. With that being said, I've been pondering this. I have pondered whether or not I would vote Labour or whether or not I would vote for the Greens, whose manifesto I think speaks more to me than any other party. But the thing to look at is, and this almost feels kind of pathetic in a way, but the thing to look at is, first things first, get the Tories out. And that is what most predictions suggest will not only happen, but happen with an epic landslide. The Tories could be facing having, maybe anywhere from, say, like 120 seats downwards, which is a huge, massive turnaround from the previous election. Labour would have a majority of at least 100 seats, quite possibly more, and it would mark a huge change in the political landscape of the country. It would be, in many respects, not just a defeat for the Tories, but possibly for the prevailing period of the next 10 to 15 years, it would render them next to invisible on the UK political scene. They would still be the second largest party in Parliament, but they would be so utterly marginalised that they might as well not exist. So it would be almost like a once in a generation epic thrashing that would probably flabbergast them. There are cabinet ministers who are facing the very real prospect of losing their seats, which is not completely unheard of in UK politics, but for this many of them to be under threat is remarkable. And I have no sympathy for them, because the Tories, as I say, they've had 14 years in power, and in that time, this country has gotten considerably worse. They have outstayed their welcome. They foolishly gave power to the bumbling idiot that is Boris Johnson. Then they gave it to Liz Truss, who was outlasted by a lettuce. Make of that what you will. And finally, we've had Rishi Sunak, who has looked out of its depth from pretty much day one. And we need some form of change. I don't know if Keir Starmer will grant us enough of a change, but we have to start somewhere, and that change has to start now. So we'll see where things go from here. We'll see what progress can be made under a Labour government, which we are almost inevitably going to get, and we'll have to take things from there. Speaking of taking things from there, so I have been doing some self-reflection because I have allowed my emotions to perhaps get the better of me in one or two online debates and discussions. I have allowed a troll to get under my skin somewhat, and what I need to do is really well and truly, completely and utterly disengage from this individual. They are, in my view, quite vile, and the thing about them is they have clearly some kind of ego problem, because they believe they're virtually never wrong in any circumstances on any subject. They are incredibly deceitful, and they're just also a huge hypocrite in so many ways. And you combine all of that with a dose of religious fanaticism, and you have someone who, quite frankly, cannot be reasoned with. And I have been butting my head against a brick wall with this individual for literally years. I've tried to disengage over the span of the past 6 months, but they have ramped up their aggressive and angry rhetoric, and it's clear that nothing that I do will get them to leave me alone. They want to have their cake and eat it. They want to spout off at me and about me in various ways, whilst at the same time denying that they're doing so, even though their rhetorical tricks would fool no one but children. And you can't reason with that kind of individual. So, you know what? They're going to say what they want regardless. They're going to manipulate and lie and twist what I have to say without question. And all I can do is A, try and block them from my site, which I'm trying to do, and B, completely ignore them. And I know for a fact they don't like being ignored, because when I was doing that for the past 6 months, they ramped up their rhetoric considerably. But it's what they deserve. You know, they deserve to scream into the void. And the void will be silent, which will probably aggravate them even more. And I need to take that step. I need to let that go, because I am, to be honest, getting somewhat stressed by it. So I just need to say, enough is enough. They're going to be a troll regardless. It's frankly, from their posting history across a number of avenues, all that they seem to be at this point. They almost, I think, enjoy it, to be honest. So it's time to say goodbye. You can, as I say, you can rant away in your echo chamber, and that's that. And it will probably feel like a weight lifted, to be honest. So, yeah, we have that kind of step. As we move into July, we have some noteworthy occasions coming up for me. I have now, in July, I will have been with my wife now for 20 years, which is just wow. I absolutely don't deserve her. I really don't. I don't know how she has persevered with me over the span of the last 20 years. She is unquestionably my better half in pretty much every conceivable way. Yes, she drives me mad from time to time. I drive her mad from time to time. That's what couples do. But here we are, 20 years later, still together, married for 15 years this year. And out of our love for one another, we have a brilliant, beautiful, amazing daughter. And I often reflect upon that, and I find myself thinking, you know what, my life is kind of complete in that sense, and I don't really want for anything as far as my family life is concerned. So I feel very lucky. I feel blessed, really, to have this wonderful woman in my life for so long. I don't know why she's persevered with me. I really don't, because I honestly don't think I deserve her. But I am eternally grateful that she sees something in me that's worth keeping me around for. So to my darling wife, I love you. I absolutely love you, and I cannot imagine ever kind of not having you in my world. I reflect back upon the first time that we met, and so many wonderful memories from that day, and how it kind of changed the course of my life, really. I don't know where I would be, who I would be, if I didn't have her, and of course, without her, I wouldn't have my daughter, who is the absolute light of my life. And I'm just so eternally grateful to have these wonderful people in my world, and so many others as a result of knowing her. And that is, well, I can't say any more than that, really. So as I say, I love you, and I will always love you. As sappy as that sounds, I will always love you. Whew. So before I get too emotional doing all of this, what else are we pondering and reflecting upon at the end of June and the beginning of July? Well, other than the anniversary that's coming up, July, I don't think it's going to be necessarily a bonkers, crazy, hectic, busy month. August is probably going to be a bit busier from my perspective, owing to an upcoming family holiday, which should be quite enjoyable. And yes, there'll be pictures, so keep an eye out for that on meerkatmusings.co.uk. There'll definitely be holiday snaps and whatnot. July will see me hopefully continue to do a bit of writing. I have been getting back into working on the third instalment of the Chon If saga. The second part, The Schism, is currently in the hands of my wonderful publishers, Jumpmaster Press. So that's being looked at, and at some point I'll have the editing stages to go through with that. I don't know as yet how long that process will take, so I can't really give you an idea as to when you will see The Schism released, but it's in the program, so to speak. The third part is, as I say, underway, only a few pages in, but having had a period of writer's block, I have subsequently found myself feeling a bit more desire to actually knuckle down and do some writing, which I'm glad I've kind of rediscovered that sort of, hunger, shall we say, to put pen to paper. So that is underway. I have put some tentative steps down on the sequel to my rather quirky little book, Fontana and Istalor, but that's still quite tentative. And I've also been putting together a little something, again, very, very early stages, of something which takes the Chon If saga, as it were, and looks at the mythology, shall we say, of that, like a glimpse to an earlier point in the history of the Chon If race. So I've put that sort of down, so to speak, and laid the groundwork of that a little bit. The priority would probably be the third part to the Chon If saga, just because that's what's rattling around inside my head the most. That's the story that is doing it the most, shall we say, to kind of break out of my head and get itself down onto paper. So that's where this is kind of beginning, as it were. And as to the direction of that third part of the story, well, you will find out in due course. So don't be impatient, you impatient meerkats, you. I will give you that story when the time is right, and hopefully, of course, you will enjoy that story. So that's kind of where we are at as far as ponderances and musings and self-reflections and writing and all that kind of stuff goes. Will we see, come the end of July, the impossible happen and see England lift a major international trophy in my lifetime? Where will my writing take me? Will I be able to put to bed and ignore the troll that has plagued me? Will I be able to kind of finally get some gardening done? I mean, I hate gardening, but it needs doing. But to that end, I actually have a new lawnmower on the way, which will hopefully be a bit better than the existing one. And will I get a break from the hay fever that has been plaguing me pretty much since the start of summer? My nose is permanently bunged up. But the problem I have is if I take hay fever meds, I end up feeling really drowsy. And I don't like that feeling. But I'm kind of damned if I do and damned if I don't. So it's weighing up the pros and cons. It's weighing up when the hay fever is so bad that I need some form of medicated relief from it. And it's not always easy, the most straightforward thing to judge, I think. So, come this time next month, we will know the outcome of the European Championships. We will also know the outcome of the general election on the 4th of July. Although the outcome of that is arguably a foregone conclusion. Not a certainty, of course, but arguably a straightforward conclusion. And who knows, as I say, perhaps there'll be some sort of relief from this hay fever. But I'm not going to hold my breath on that one. So, with all of that said, I wish you all well. There will, of course, probably be other videos between now and the end of the month anyway. As usual, on www.meerkatmusings.co.uk, there'll be various posts and content and that kind of thing. So do feel free to check all of that out. And if by some miracle you actually rather enjoy these daft little videos, do feel free to hit the like button. Do feel free to subscribe. Take care, everyone. Love you all. Bye-bye.